Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'd also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. On today's episode of Autism Stories, Michael Klein joins us to discuss his experience as a race car driver and voice actor. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Michael, thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be on here.
I'd love to start our conversation by learning, where does your story in the autistic community begin?
It's something that my parents always kind of thought I kind of struggled with. I always kind of had the signs, some of the symptoms of it. It's like I struggled with social communication, picking up social cues, all the typical stuff that you see in kids who are on the spectrum. But I wasn't really diagnosed up until last year. I was diagnosed by my psychiatrist up in Indianapolis when I was living there. We went through the forget what it's called, the DVSD, I think is what it's called. Yeah, I'm still kind of learning things myself. Yeah, we went through that, and I was formally diagnosed last year, and it kind of helped me. I think I just kind of felt more of a sense of relief because it kind of gave it an explanation for some of my more unusual behaviors and explanations for some of my struggles I had growing up.
This coming July seems like it's going to be an exciting time for you, as you'll be making your NASCAR debut in the ARCA Menard Series event at Indianapolis Raceway Park, I believe on July 25th. What types of things are involved in the process for qualifying for the ARCA Menard Series?
Yeah, that's something that we've kind of been working on for the past couple of years. I've been trying to get to this race here the past couple of years, and unfortunately, it's just never panned out. This year, I was able to get a partnership with the VTuber Corey Ojo, who is helping me out with this, and I'm so excited to have her on board. And I'm so grateful to her for getting me to this point. It takes a lot. The main thing that they look for is they look at your racing experience first. So I have experience in dirt and asphalt open wheel racing, as well as in full-bodied stock cars. So we took a look at that, and they approve you for tracks that are basically a mile and under, which is generally considered like the beginner type tracks. And then once you kind of prove what you can do on those, they move you up to, say, the mile and a half to the super speedways. There's actually a test that we can do in Daytona that will approve you to run Daytona and Talladega, but that's not something I think I'm going to be doing this year. I kind of want to focus on the short track stuff for now, and then maybe next year I'll look at doing that. Yeah, so the ARCA Menard Series is the very first division in NASCAR's ladder. So when you get to this level, you're officially at the point where you're getting the national exposure through coverage on Fox Sports 1. And this race is actually going to be run right before the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race the same night. So there's definitely a lot of exposure in that too. And that's so good for your partners, the drivers, the teams. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Like we just talked about kind of your story beginning in the autistic community, but I'm wondering about your racing story, kind of where that begins, because anytime I don't have control of something like that's going maybe too fast, like I have like an intense amount of anxiety, whether it's like roller coasters, for example. I'm not a fan of roller coasters. So I'm just wondering, was there always kind of that need for speed? Like learning about your autism, like, is this just kind of like a sensory difference in terms of kind of your need for movement at like high speeds? Like where does that kind of all begin for you?
Yeah, that is something I've kind of wondered myself. I started when I was 15, I believe, in go-karts. And then, like I said, I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I moved into the open wheel scene, racing midgets, sprint cars on dirt and asphalt. And then I eventually moved into the full-bodied stock cars this past couple of years. So I would say it does probably kind of come to that comfort level because I feel very comfortable behind the wheel of a car, and maybe it does kind of play into that whole sensory thing But that's actually something I never really thought about. But that's actually a very interesting thing you brought up because I think it really could go in well with that. Because whenever I'm on the track gripping that steering wheel, that's when I am the most calm. Like that's where I feel most at home.
Very interesting. Now, in addition to your artistic identity, you're also an LGBTQ plus driver. So I'm wondering, when your fellow drivers learn about your identities, what type of feedback or questions have you received from them?
So it generally hasn't come up a whole lot. I don't really bring it up a whole lot around the racetrack. So far, all the interactions I've had have generally been pretty positive. There was one driver who I'm not going to name who I had problems with, who, I don't work with anymore. I feel like at least with the autism community, there's generally a level of understanding within the motorsports community. I found it to be very accepting when it comes to the autism community. When it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, I definitely think there's still work that needs to be done with that. Especially in the Arkham and Art series, there have been a few incidents where drivers have gone online and put out bigoted beliefs, and they might say that they're okay with you to your face, and then they'll go behind your back and post something online. And that's kind of showing your true colors, I think, when you do that. But for the most part, the feedback has, when it comes to LGBTQ plus stuff, it's been kind of mixed. I have found a lot of acceptance, which I'm very grateful to say that, because a few years ago, I did not think there would be a place for me in the sport. But then NASCAR kind of came out and started to support Pride Month, and then I saw many people within the sport actually coming out and showing their support for that. And I was like, there is a chance I can be in the sport as my authentic self. I came out as asexual back in 2022. Generally, the response I got was pretty positive. This year, I actually ran I am NASCAR with the rainbow sticker uh, on the late model I tested for Dane Laster, and it seemed like I generally got pretty good feedback on that. But at the end of the day, I'm just, if I can be a positive role model for maybe someone in the racing community who is on the spectrum, whether it's the autistic spectrum or the LGBTQ plus spectrum, I'm so happy I can be that guy to do that.
I guess, I'm wondering, race car driving maybe is similar to most of our world in the sense that it probably could be more accessible and inclusive. So, in what ways do you think NASCAR and just race car driving could be more accessible and inclusive as we move towards 2025?
I think they're doing a pretty good job right now when it comes to like sensory needs, because you go to the tracks and you'll see earbuds for children. I've seen some tracks that have full sensory sets, and that's something that I've always thought has been really good, because I know, remembering when I was a kid, the loud noises of these, they scared me. That was the biggest hurdle I had to overcome, was the loud noises. Loud noises would always really overwhelm me. We actually had to leave a Monster Jam show because we didn't anticipate how loud it was going to be. When I went to our first NASCAR race, we came prepared, and I had the best time of my life. And so, yeah, I know to come prepared now. So I think they do a pretty good job when it comes to the autistic community. When it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, I would say maybe take an action more when they see this kind of hatred within the sport. There have been a few times where I've reported somebody and then nothing's happened. So that's definitely something I want to see more of. I want to see action being taken whenever there is a driver or anyone within the industry who is acting bigoted, because there should be no place for that. There should be no place for that in the sport or in society. And I will say that I do think they are working on that in both sides too, because there have been some cases of ableism in the sport as well. Generally, that's kind of reacted to with sensitivity training. I think that's a pretty good action to take on that, is ordering the drivers to go through that kind of training and understand, where they screwed up and how they can become better. So there's definitely a few ways they can go about that, but that's just kind of my ideas.
Something that I'm always trying to do is make progress in different areas of my life. And whenever I see people kind of making that progress, I'm always interested to learn about that. So, thinking about that, I read that you were the 2022 Illinois Midget Series Most Improved Driver. So, what are some of the things that you did to kind of earn that award as the most improved driver for that year?
I surrounded myself with some great people who knew what they're doing. This was my first year running pavement. It was definitely a big learning curve, just getting to talk with people who had more experience than me. The main people I want to bring up are Scott and Ryan Shokuski and Laverne Spencer. They really helped me out a lot. So the Shokuskis have years of experience within midget racing, especially on pavement and running at this track that we ran at. So just getting to listen to them, I think definitely helped out quite a bit. So I would say, the biggest advice I can give is just always be willing to listen to other people who may be more experienced than you. Try to kind of understand different perspectives.
You're a person of many talents because in addition to being a race car driver, you are a voice actor. What type of voice roles have you done or would like to do in the future?
Yeah, so I am a voice actor. That's something I've kind of started to do over the past few years. It started when I really got into anime about 5 years ago. I started with Attack on Titan, and it went to My Hero Academia, Naruto. I started watching it all. I started to think, I see that it's basically the same pool of actors who are doing this, the same pool of like a few hundred different actors who are doing these. So there's a way you can become an actor in anime. And I'd always kind of had an interest in acting. I did a little bit in high school and middle school, but I never really took it that seriously. But I was kind of like, this is something I'd really like to do. And then Chainsaw Man came out, and the dub for that was just absolutely incredible. And that was kind of what put me over the edge, like, okay, I want to do this. How do I get started? Because at that time, my racing career was kind of stalled out. But I'd also kind of come to realize I need to find some other things in my life. I can't have racing be the only thing that I devote my life to. I can't be the only thing I wake up in the morning and that's what I'm doing. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to pursue this new interest I have in voice acting. So I started taking the classes. I started putting in the auditions. So far, my biggest role has been in a promotional video for this book called A Witch Cries, So Comes the End, where I play a guy named Kenji. And I had a lot of fun with that one. So moving on, I would love to do anime. I would love to do video games and animation. So definitely the character work is what I'm really looking to do. The video game stuff and all those classes I do, it's so much fun. I kind of got into this from anime, but I found a major love for the video game aspects of it too. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about is that when you're in a different genre, there's so many different ways of doing it. There's so many different methods that you can do in video games that won't necessarily work in anime or animation. And it's just like, I'm not going to say anything because I'm usually held to an NDA on this stuff. Yeah, it's something that kind of, I think, fulfills my soul and gets my creativity going. And I have so much fun with it. And it's something where it's kind of like, I honestly wouldn't mind becoming a voice actor full time and having my racing be like a hobby or a side hustle when I always saw myself as getting to NASCAR. But I understand now that's a pretty lofty goal and I don't necessarily want to give up on that. But it's like, I've got other things in my life now and I'm so happy that I have all these things that, fulfill my soul.
And lastly, Michael, how can our listeners learn about you and support you beyond this interview?
If you wanted to follow me on social media, I'm at Michael Klein VA on Twitter or X, whatever it is. I have 2 Instagram accounts, one for my voice acting and one for my racing. It's basically Michael Klein VA or Michael Klein Racing. I also have a YouTube channel called Michael Klein VA and TikTok that's also Michael Klein VA. But I usually post both my racing and my voice acting stuff on there. You get the best of both worlds on those.
Well, Michael, it was wonderful to meet you today. Thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Thanks so much to Michael for the conversation. To learn more about Michael, please check out the link in the podcast description for this episode. We always love hearing from you and would especially love to hear from you relating to this episode regarding your passion and how you are or plan to use it in the future to bring you joy. Did you know Autism Personal Coach provides neurodiversity affirming support by autistics for autistics? We empower autistic adults and teens to lead self-directed, purpose-driven lives through our customized life coaching and community groups. Our distinct approach prioritizes each client's unique goals and preferences, fostering a sense of agency and promoting self-advocacy. Coaches work collaboratively with clients to develop personalized strategies and tools that can help with executive functioning, relationship building, stress management, and much more. We also support parents and partners of autistic individuals by providing insights and guidance to bridge communication gaps and nurture mutual understanding. With our accessible remote services, individuals from any location can receive the assistance and mentoring they need. So please join us today to experience judgment-free coaching rooted in empathy, expertise, and respect for autistic identity. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.